But so that energy push, that push for renewable energy, however, is very much a concern locally, which is where I want to turn tonight for the bulk of the reporting. Because of the fact that a large degree of research and preparation for this broadcast was spent on trying to bring you the best information possible on these lithium battery storage units that are being proposed for Ticonderoga. And because the more I find, I do believe that this would concern not only Ticonderoga, but it would concern Crown Point, Moriah, um, Hague, all of the surrounding region as well. Tesla is involved on a piece of private land, insofar as we can tell. And the question, at least insofar at this point, is what happens if one of these fires breaks out? As we've noted so far in the reporting, that there is a great deal of risk in this technology, and the more that we find, the more the risk goes up. So, if a fire breaks out, the local hazmat team is required to respond by the based on APA environmental regulations, all that stuff. And because you're dealing with a hazardous material there, your hazmat team would have to respond to that. So in Essex County, in our region, for us here locally, that team is based in Lewis. Of course, that's where a lot of where the county government and whatnot is, up in Elizabethtown, Lewis. So that's where they would be based. But a large chunk of those members, however, are traveling from as far out as Lake Placid and North Alba. And so when you factor in the prep time from getting from those places to Lewis down to Ticonderoga, and that is, you're looking at a possible response time of up to an hour to an hour and a half. In an emergency situation that very well could be a matter of life and death, depending. And the very much the wild card in this is not so much the fire, but the possibility of explosion in these devices, because they're not only flammable, but you have that explosion, that explosive element as well. And the humanitarian aspect of this, the risk to the first responders and the personnel, is really something for the community to consider here. In Arizona, where we mentioned on Monday and in our initial report back on Friday, there were 4 firefighters, first responders, that were injured in that fire in Arizona. And then another fire with a lithium battery that was not so much connected to a storage unit, but it was still dealing with a battery at a factory in Chattanooga, Tennessee. So it's similar technology that is in use at a factory, which is, so this is technology that gets put to use often in everyday situations. That a fire and explosion there caused serious burns for 2 firefighters there, one of which had to be life flighted out of that facility. So if you're talking that type of situation in Tennessee up here, you're talking a first responder that would be life flighted, say, to Burlington, because that's probably where the closest center hospital that would be able to deal with that. I could say Albany in that as well, but here it would be primarily Burlington to deal with that. And so that puts a strain not only on the first responders, but these are people who have wives, families, children in our communities that we are going to put at risk because of the indifference and carelessness of community leadership when, as far back as 2025, this was known about. So you not only have the risk to the first responders, but then you have the environmental impact that we had alluded to before. But on a more detailed note, as many as eight hazardous material pollutants, I guess you'd call them, are emitted into the air as this burns, as this fire burns. So, and as that fire burns, it does not require the oxygen from the air. It has air in those the air from the battery ends up fueling the fire. So it really is fueling itself, which is probably why it burns so hot, because oxygen fuels fire. But these chemicals, you're talking carbon monoxide, hydrogen chloride, and hydrogen fluoride, among others, that are emitted into the air, into the local atmosphere, that we're going to throw into there. And remember, the evacuation zone is 3 miles in that, with the hospital, the nursing home, all of that right in the nearby vicinity, with not only the residents. Now, this was another piece of this that I had not thought of until preparing for tonight. But what about the economic impact on the people who are employed in these places? If you're talking an emergency room, which we have in Ticonderoga, you're potentially looking at a shutdown because this takes because it takes time for this fire to burn out. So if we're looking at, say, a 4 to 5 day window where this fire is burning down, are we going to have an emergency room shut down and people denied health care because of the fact that this is burning? Not to mention the loss of money, of income for the people that work there. So you not only have the environmental impact, but you'd have the potential economic impact and the disruption to the entire community and region because of the fact that that people's carelessness and, quite frankly, selfishness at this project that gets let in here like this, so undercover, by the looks of it. And with the Lake Champlain there, the Lachute River, all of that runoff in the Lake Champlain Basin nearby, how all of these environmental groups are not up in arms is kind of surprising and somewhat hypocritical for a region that likes to pride itself on being forever wild and so full of environmental beauty, which it is, and everybody that lives here knows that and appreciates it. But people, where are the people that want to protect the Adirondacks now? So I realize that I'm probably a little more heated than usual, but we cannot allow something like this to come into Ticonderoga, and to think that it would not affect Moriah, Crown Point, or anyone else, because if you're on the fire departments in Moriah, Fort Henry, Mineville, Crown Point, I guarantee you that in an emergency like this, depending, you would be called. Very much so. That happens all the time in this part of the country, where if a major structure fire, for example, to use an analogy, breaks out, it's often that multiple departments are called to the scene to respond to these things. So this would not just be a one community problem, it's an entire region problem. And with New York State pushing these renewable energy projects and the wide availability of land in all of our communities, don't be surprised if tomorrow the next one is Crown Point or Moriah considered for the chopping block. So now that that's over, and I have put that ugliness behind us, let's move to the good news, and that is to highlight some of the local businesses